when the student becomes the master. This photograph captures a rare moment of vulnerability and collaboration. Bruce Lee, shirtless and relaxed, listening intently to a director or producer on what appears to be an outdoor film set. Unlike the combat-ready warrior we've seen in previous images, here Lee stands in a casual pose, one hand resting naturally at his side, his expression open and receptive. The man beside him, dressed in dark clothing and wearing sunglasses, gestures emphatically while speaking, clearly explaining a scene or giving direction. Behind them, the ancient stone walls and crew members in the background reveal this is a Golden Harvest production, likely Enter the Dragon or one of his Hong Kong films. This isn't Lee the untouchable icon, this is Lee the collaborator, the professional actor who understood that great cinema required teamwork, not just individual brilliance. The anatomy of collaboration. What makes this photograph fascinating is the body language it captures. Bruce Lee isn't in a fighting stance, isn't demonstrating technique, isn't radiating the intimidating presence we associate with his image. Instead, he's standing with weight shifted casually to one side, head slightly tilted, genuinely listening. His physique is still remarkable, the defined chest, the lean abdomen, the powerful shoulders, but here it's secondary to the human interaction. The director's animated hand gestures suggest he's explaining something important, perhaps describing how a shot will be framed, or how Lee should move through a scene. Lee's receptive posture shows a side of him many people forget. He was intensely interested in filmmaking craft, not just martial arts performance. He studied cinematography, editing, choreography, and direction because he wanted complete control over how his martial arts philosophy was portrayed on screen. The director's vision meets the warrior's reality. The interaction captured here represents a constant tension in Bruce Lee's film career, the gap between what directors envisioned and what Lee knew was martially authentic. Directors often wanted dramatic, theatrical movements that looked good on camera but violated combat principles. Lee would argue passionately that certain choreography was unrealistic, that real fights didn't look like dance routines, that power came from specific body mechanics that cameras might miss if positioned incorrectly. These weren't ego-driven arguments, but philosophical stands. Lee believed that if martial arts cinema portrayed techniques incorrectly, it would mislead audiences and disrespect the arts themselves. The director in this photograph might be explaining a sequence that Lee would then modify to make more authentic, creating the hybrid of cinema magic and martial truth that defined his films. The physique that needed no costume. Bruce Lee's shirtless appearance in this behind-the-scenes moment reveals something significant. His body was always camera-ready. Most actors prepare for shirtless scenes, dehydrating to increase muscle definition, pumping up immediately before filming, using favorable lighting. Lee didn't need such tricks. His year-round conditioning meant that any moment could become a filming moment. The chest development visible here, the clear abdominal definition, despite casual lighting, the proportionate shoulder-to-waist ratio, these weren't achieved through last-minute preparation, but through relentless daily training. His workout regimen never varied based on filming schedule. He trained intensely whether cameras were rolling or not. This consistency reflected his philosophy that you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training. The body we see in this casual on-set photograph is the same body that would appear in finished films, because there was no difference between Bruce Lee preparing and Bruce Lee ready. The stone walls of cinematic history. The ancient stone walls visible in the background of this photograph aren't just set decoration, they're location markers that tell us about 1970s Hong Kong filmmaking. Golden Harvest and other studios regularly filmed on location at historical sites, temples, and rural areas to achieve authentic period atmosphere without expensive set construction. These weathered stone walls, probably part of an actual historical structure, provided texture and atmosphere that studio sets couldn't match. Filming in such locations came with challenges: unpredictable weather, difficult lighting conditions, curious onlookers, and limited amenities. Yet these conditions often produced more authentic performances. Actors couldn't rely on controlled studio environments. They had to adapt to real heat, real wind, real terrain. For Bruce Lee, who believed in constant adaptation as a martial principle. These challenging location shoots aligned perfectly with his philosophy. The professional actor emerges. This photograph documents Bruce Lee's evolution from martial artist who acted to actor who happened to be a martial artist. Early in his career, particularly during his Green Hornet days, Lee approached acting as a vehicle for demonstrating martial arts. By the Golden Harvest era captured in this image, he understood that effective cinema required more than good fight choreography. He needed to convey character, emotion, and narrative through performance, not just physical prowess. His willingness to listen to directors, to collaborate with cinematographers, to discuss scene composition and emotional beats, all visible in this moment of receptive attention, shows professional maturity. Lee studied acting techniques, watched films obsessively to understand what worked and why, and constantly refined his screen presence. The casual confidence in his posture here reflects an artist comfortable in his craft, secure enough to take direction while maintaining his artistic vision. The crew is extended family. The figures visible in the background, crew members preparing equipment, an assistant in white watching the discussion, represent the collaborative ecosystem that created Bruce Lee's films. Hong Kong film productions of the 1970s operated on tight budgets and demanding schedules, often completing entire features in weeks rather than months. This intense pace created strong bonds between cast and crew. Everyone worked extended hours in challenging conditions toward a shared goal. Lee was known for treating crew members with respect, learning their names, understanding their roles, and appreciating their contributions. He recognized that the lighting technician who positioned lamps to create dramatic shadows, the camera operator who tracked his movements smoothly, the continuity supervisor who ensured consistency between takes, all were essential to translating his martial arts vision to film. This photograph captures not just a star receiving direction, but a team member participating in collective creation. The casual perfection of natural posture. Even in this relaxed, behind-the-scenes moment, Bruce Lee's posture reveals his training. Notice how his spine maintains natural alignment, how his shoulders sit squarely without hunching despite his casual stance, how his weight distribution remains balanced. Martial artists develop what's sometimes called structural integrity. The body learns to maintain optimal positioning, even when consciously relaxed. This isn't about posing, it's about muscle memory and proprioception developed through years of stance training, meditation, and body awareness exercises. The relaxed yet aligned posture we see here allowed Lee to move instantly from stillness to explosive action, a principle he emphasized constantly in Jeet Kune Do. Most people stand with collapsed posture that requires reorganization before effective movement. Lee stood naturally in ways that maintained readiness without conscious effort or visible tension. The evolution of Enter the Dragon. If this photograph comes from Enter the Dragon filming, and the production values suggest it might, it documents a pivotal moment in cinema history. Enter the Dragon was Bruce Lee's first major Hollywood co-production, his opportunity to bring authentic martial arts to Western audiences with professional production values and international distribution. The collaboration between Hong Kong sensibilities and Hollywood techniques created unique challenges. American producers wanted certain narrative conventions. Lee wanted authentic martial arts. American cinematographers framed shots differently than Hong Kong crews. Lee had specific ideas about how techniques should be captured. The conversation in this photograph might represent these cultural negotiations, different visions being reconciled into unified artistic expression. The resulting film would introduce Bruce Lee to global audiences and establish martial arts cinema as a viable genre in Western markets. The philosophy of continuous learning. Bruce Lee's receptive posture in this photograph embodies a principle he discussed extensively in his writings: the importance of remaining a student regardless of mastery level. Many martial artists, upon achieving black belt or master status, stop actively learning and simply repeat what they already know. Lee rejected this approach, constantly studying other fighting systems, other philosophies, other disciplines. His interest in filmmaking craft reflected the same principle. He wasn't content being a martial artist who appeared in films. He wanted to understand every aspect of cinema so he could shape how martial arts were portrayed. His questions to directors and cinematographers weren't challenges to their authority, but genuine inquiries, seeking knowledge. The listening posture captured here shows someone more interested in understanding than in asserting, more focused on learning than defending ego. The unscripted authenticity. Behind-the-scenes photographs like this one often reveal more truth than carefully composed publicity shots. Here we see Bruce Lee between takes, when the performance mask is off and the real person emerges. His expression shows concentration, but also ease. He's comfortable in this environment, confident in his abilities, interested in the collaborative process. There's no attempt to project the fierce warrior image that publicity departments cultivated. This is simply a professional at work, discussing craft with a colleague. These unguarded moments are precious because they remind us that legends are built on daily work, on mundane conversations about camera angles and timing, on collaboration and compromise, and countless small decisions that accumulate into cinematic achievement. The iconic warrior we remember emerged from thousands of moments like this one, unglamorous, professional, focused on craft rather than image. The director's challenge. Consider the perspective of the director in this photograph. What must it have been like directing Bruce Lee? On one hand, you had an actor of extraordinary physical ability who could execute moves no other performer could match. On the other hand, you had someone with definite opinions about martial authenticity, who would challenge choreography that violated combat principles. Successful directors learn to frame their directions as questions rather than commands. What if we tried this, instead of do it this way? They recognized that Lee's martial expertise exceeded their own, and that his suggestions usually improved fight sequences. The animated hand gesture captured here might be a director explaining a concept while implicitly inviting Lee's input. This collaborative approach produced the innovative fight choreography that distinguished Lee's films, grounded in authentic technique but adapted for cinematic impact. The legacy of collaboration. This photograph represents something often overlooked in discussions of Bruce Lee, his collaborative genius. While we remember him as a solitary figure pushing boundaries, he actually achieved greatness through partnerships with Yip Man, who taught him Wing Chun, with James Lee, who introduced him to strength training, with Dan Inosanto, who helped develop Jeet Kune Do, with Raymond Chow and Golden Harvest, who gave him creative control, with directors and choreographers who translated his vision to film. The listening posture in this image embodies Lee's understanding that mastery doesn't mean knowing everything, but rather knowing how to synthesize knowledge from multiple sources. Every film he made was a collaboration between martial philosophy and cinematic craft, between Eastern tradition and Western innovation, between individual vision and collective expertise. Final reflection: the human behind the legend. This behind-the-scenes photograph offers something rare and valuable, a glimpse of Bruce Lee as a working professional rather than an untouchable icon. Here he is, listening, learning, collaborating, participating in the unglamorous process of filmmaking. His legendary physique is evident even in casual moments, but it's secondary to the human interaction. This image reminds us that greatness isn't just about individual brilliance, but about how we work with others, how we receive input, how we balance vision with collaboration. The warrior who could defeat any opponent also knew when to listen to directors about camera angles. The martial arts master who developed his own system remained open to learning from cinematographers and editors. The icon whose image intimidated millions stood patiently on set, discussing craft with colleagues. Perhaps this is the most important lesson this photograph teaches. True mastery includes humility, collaboration amplifies individual genius, and legends are built not in isolated perfection but through daily work with others toward shared vision.